Oh my God, my pandemic hair. Welcome to this episode of Nocturnal Transmission with your host, Ryan Kerr. This episode is a gay away, following the journey of Jose Patiño-Gómez, who was a colleague of mine a couple of years ago and who shares his journey from Bogotá to Montreal, to Bogotá, to Toronto, and a few other exciting tidbits. We talk about what it's like to date a city, have a one night stand with a city, or maybe marry a city, and what it's like to be far from home. And of course, what is home in all of this COVID stuff. So, buckle up. I think I've said that before, but it is important to wear a seatbelt and join us as we go gay away, away, away. Hi, Jose.
Hi dear, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I mean, it's such a loaded question. I realize that how are you and I'm doing great are both lies. I don't really want to know how you're doing because I can't add to the depths of my own despair. And I know I'm great is just what you think I want to hear, but it also tears me up because then I'm like, oh, he's doing better than me.
Well, yeah, it's just a multi-purpose phrase. Yeah, it can be very loaded, but it's just to keep it simple. It's like we don't have 6 hours to just delve into our realities, but that's life.
One of the cool things about office culture that I sort of kind of miss was this codification of fake hellos and highs because you had this whole world where you'd be like, oh hey, you're like bumping into someone in the kitchen and you're like, hi, how are you? I'm good. Oh, I'm great too. And then you go home and you had the real people that you would share the real things with, and then there was this nice contrast. Except now it's like we don't have any real interactions in the same way, so everything just feels anyway.
Yeah, and you know what is funny because I mean, for better and for worse though, because we have gotten used to this whole Zoom dynamic and something that we have been doing, for instance, at work is having these social Fridays or whatever. So we have like a happy hour or something just
Okay.
for us to socialize a bit, especially because we actually have grown a lot in the last year. So we will do that. And at first we were doing it over Zoom and it was like, oh, this is kind of nice because you get to see everybody, you share jokes, comments, blah, blah, blah. And it was good. And then for Christmas holiday, we decided to do something different. And someone proposed this platform. I forgot the name. It's called Gather Town or something like that. Which basically you look like you're in a video game and you have a little avatar and you move around. And basically you move around, and then if I bump into you, our cameras pop up, and then we start talking. So it's pretty much like engaging in a real scenario, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it brought back that anxiety or that awkwardness that you sometimes have in those meetings. So you will be in a group of 5 people, and then the conversation will go someplace, and then you're like, what do I do now? Like, should I just walk away, or should I say like, okay, guys, I'm gonna walk around, whatever? And I was like, oh my god, I haven't experienced these dilemmas in like a year,
Yeah.
and then we were there in this virtual thing, like trying to, okay, guys, I'm gonna talk to someone else and walk around from there. So it was really weird how this was kind of recreating that real life social dynamics. And I was like, wait, I don't miss that part.
Yeah.
I don't miss having to like fade away or excuse. And it's actually funny because the moment you start moving away, your camera starts fading away and then you just disappear. So it's very peculiar. Yeah. But I was like, oh, wait, yeah, we haven't socialized or interacted with people in like this kind of gathering in a while. So yeah, it's peculiar.
So we used to share an office. This is a long time ago. But we're not technically colleagues. And so you've always done different work than me. But I obviously think you're pretty charming and funny. So when we had a quick catch up the other day, I thought you'd be a great guest on Nocturnal Transmission. Because in addition to being, charming and funny and, all the things, check. I also thought it might be fun to talk a little bit about what lockdown feels like in Canada, specifically in Toronto, where we both are, and what it's like having close family far away, because my family is in Newmarket and Toronto, and Kingston, which is, a maximum of a 3 hour car ride away. And your family is how many hours of a plane?
It will be what, a 5 hour plane, I think. Yeah,
And then,
actually, like, yeah, 5 6 hours, something like that.
yeah. And so I thought you would be an ideal, guest for this Gay Away series, which rhymes. So that's a good name to have.
Of course, if it rhymes, it's good. I'm definitely gay and away. Well, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I'm always away, or I felt like I've always been kind of away but present at the same time. It's
Yeah.
weird.
So I'm going to talk about myself a bit, and then we'll go back to you because it's supposed to be an interview
It's
as
your
opposed
turn.
to a monologue. Yeah, I'll just yeah. But I was mentioning to you that I lived in France for part of my undergrad for 6 months, and it was a really interesting moment to be in another place and in another language. So for me, speaking in French was rusty, but I had to, so I made it work, and and I also had a totally different filter when I was there for in my mind for 6 months. And then as it got closer to the end of my time, I was like, or do I want to live here? And then I had a completely different filter of like, could I live in France? Could I live in Lyon? Could I live in Paris? Um, and I was joking with you that, it's kind of like when you are attracted to somebody, there's the could I have sex with them or could I marry them? And it's a very, very different filter that we use. And I just wonder, like, you know, did you have like a one night stand with Toronto and then you're like, that's it, we're moving in together? Like, how did you sort and how do you kind of navigate? Because to me, that's the here and away. I really understand because you always up in that 6 months, I always had pulls in, back in Canada.
I particularly love your use of analogies because that's something that I always do and I like. And particularly resonated with me the whole thing about the relationship because it really reminded me of a time back in where would that be? Actually, 2016. So 5 years ago, yeah,
Okay.
March 2016, something like that. I was in Bogotá, which is the city where I was living before moving here in Bogotá in Colombia. And I was with my mom. It was like my last week. We were wrapping up packing, and I was like coming here um, to come to live to Canada as as a resident. Um, and I remember we were walking around like downtown the city, blah blah blah. And at some point, I was crying, and my mom was like, "What is happening?" I was like, "Well, I just love this city. I love it here. Bogota. I had such a strong connection to the city since the very first time I was there visiting, and then I loved my time living there for many reasons. And I remember my mom asked me, kind of concerned, like, "Are you sure that this is what you want to do? Are you sure about moving to Canada? I mean, like you feel conflicted. You feel like you're crying because you're gonna miss Bogota. So, are you sure?" And I say, and I use an analogy of a relationship, and I say, "Mom, the dynamic with me in Bogota is like, when you're like in a relationship, you're still very much in love. You love the person, but you know that relationship is not going anywhere, and you have to make that tough decision of like ended that relationship because probably both of you will be better off apart, but you still very much love it. So it's hard." I was like, that is exactly how I feel. I was like, I
Mm.
love this city. I will always do, and every time I go, I have this mix of emotion, but at the same time, I was not getting the things that I needed there, and I was at a point in my life that I just needed to change. I just
Mm-hmm.
needed some place where I could grow in many aspects, where I could experience different things, and that place ended up being, in this case, Toronto. And yeah, and that's and I have been great.
I, I mean, I think in modern. I mean, I was nodding. I was agreeing with everything you were saying, and then I was like, wait a minute. Do I do the breaking up, or do people break up with me? Maybe I can't. Maybe I actually can't align myself as far with that narrative as I thought. But that is a really great image, and I felt that way visiting some cities. I've traveled a lot, and you go to New York City, and everybody loves New York, and I went to, yeah, but I don't think I could live here, and this feeling of like, I love you, but we have to keep our distance.
Totally.
But
And I think, to your point of the one night stand, I think that's something that happened to me with, let's say, with Toronto in a way,
Mm.
versus, for example, Montreal. Because before I actually moved to Toronto to live, I had the opportunity to live in Montreal for a year. So my
Oh.
experience with Canada was actually in 2014. I moved to Montreal, and I spent the whole year there, like literally from January to the other January. It was my first big winter. It was my first experience
It's a big winter there.
living, like living outside in another place.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went back home for like a year and a half, do all my paperwork to be able to come back. So in a way, it's I find it peculiar because Montreal is like my back home in Canada. Every time
Yes.
I go there is like when you're visiting back home, but
Mm.
in Canada, because it was my first stop here and because I have a very strong connection to Montreal. I love the city. I love it, people. I love the energy, the vibe, and everything.
Me too.
However, and people always ask me, like, if you really like Montreal so much, why are you here?
Why don't you marry it?
He's like, why are you married? Especially because most of the people is most of the problem with most of sorry, like the reason that most people don't just pack their bags and go to Montreal is because of the language. And in my case, I do have my friends that at the time was better. So they were like, why aren't you there? And it's about that connection that you have with places. I love it that I have a big feeling. Can I marry Montreal and live together, like live forever and ever? I don't know. Because I feel like even though we have a strong connection, is in a way not my type. My type is chaotic, stressful, big cities and places. So I'm like, in Canada, I have to be in Toronto, right? So when you were talking about New York, like, oh, could I live here? I'm like, yeah, of course I could live here. I will thrive on the stress and the rats on the street and I don't know, the people yelling and stuff like that because I'm used to that and I always love that experience. And I have the opportunity to live in two of the biggest cities in South America growing up. So every time I'm in a small city, I feel trapped. I
Right.
feel like, yeah, I feel trapped. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. I had a love affair with Montreal as well, and I eventually I did. I came back to Toronto, and I think for similar reasons. There's something smaller about that city that yeah, it's just not it's not as frenzied and panicky. So
Yeah,
see
which
ya.
is good. But for me, it's like, I kind of need that thing. But yeah, it's still in my heart and I love the city.
So I think there's a common narrative, of people coming to Canada, and this is like totally a pompous kind of impression, but people are fleeing their countries of origin because they want something better. And I just wonder, why Canada? Was it just for a change? As a gay person, I know that there are lots of. I actually had a chance when I was 19 to tour every city in Canada. I was doing children's theater. Ayo. And it was like unsafe for me to be gay in most major cities in Canada, let alone small cities. So even in that, I found like Toronto and Montreal were probably my only two cities where I could be like a comfortable gay person when I was 19. But of course, as a Canadian, I forget all that. I pinkwash the whole country and I'm like, Canada's a safe haven for all. And it's dangerous in South America or it's dangerous in other countries. And, was your sexuality or, your lifestyle part of what motivated the move?
Not really, at
That's
least not on a
amazing.
conscious level. No, to be honest, at least not on a conscious level. Maybe subconsciously, I thought that I could have, I don't know. To be honest, I don't think so. I feel like, regardless of the differences in, acceptance and rights and all of this stuff that the countries might have, I feel comfortable, like in my own skin and with the people I knew. Of course, it was a different dynamic, but I felt, and I think that's also something that is good about like a large city,
Hmm.
is that in a way you're anonymous. You're just one other person. You're not like the
Hmm.
gay kid in the neighborhood or the gay kid in the city, right?
Yes.
So I never kind of felt that way. Uh, Living in Bogota. However, before that, I spent over 10 years in what I think is like one of the most like macho cities in Colombia, um, where anything that you could do could be misconstrued because you needed to show masculinity at all costs.
What city
And
was that?
in Barranquilla. which
Barranquilla.
Barranquilla, exactly. You have to
Got it.
roll your R's.
Got
So
it.
Barranquilla is actually, well, it's in the coast, is where Shakira is from and Sofia Vergara. So basically, Shakira, Sofia, and me, we're like the big exports
The
of the,
trifecta.
yeah. So we have Barranquilla, which is next to Cartagena. So everybody knows Cartagena is next door. And it's a city that, despite maybe Cartagena has like all the touristic attraction, this one is like more the city one of the coastal cities. However, it's a very kind of slow-minded city, and at least in those times. Right now, I'm actually surprised when I see. Recently, I started following and discovering these like young people on Instagram who are very like queer. Queer people and like artists and non-binary individuals and all
Mhm.
this stuff, and I'm seeing their profile, their stories, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so
So
amazing
different.
that these people are being themselves and they're thriving
Yes.
in a context that I found so hostile when I was living there. So I think it's a mix of maybe times have changed a bit, and as a in general, things have changed a bit. But I think it's mostly about these new generations, and it makes you sound so old every time you do
I
that, but it
know.
is what it is. Like these teenagers, or like because they're not even 20, and you see that they're so unapologetical about their life and stuff that they're just doing their own thing,
Yes.
and you get to a point that it sticks around. But when I was growing up there, well, I grew up as a kid in Caracas in Venezuela, but then I moved to this city, so my teen years were there. And I'm telling you that it was a city that if it was raining, Ryan, I couldn't use an umbrella because I will be bullied in the street. Like, oh, are you gonna melt? Are you made of sugar? It was not masculine as for me as a boy to be using an umbrella because it was raining, because apparently that's not a macho thing to do. So that's an example that I always use because it's been with me
Wow.
forever. The level of ridiculousness. It's just ridiculous that people will be like, "Oh, you're not masculine enough because you're not willing to get wet in the rain." It's like, how is this related? So,
Wow.
so yeah, so yeah, you use like a bright color or whatever. Unless it's the carnival, people are gonna be like looking at you or like making comments or making sounds and stuff. So yeah, you get a lot of like. You can get
Wow.
like call in the streets and people telling you that if you're passing in front of a construction site, oh, you better man up because you're gonna be yell some stuff. So
Wow.
it was not cute. However, I never felt like that it. Of course, it affects you in a way, but I
Sure.
was never personally, like persecuted or like attacked or something like that. I'm lucky enough, and I don't remember experiencing or hearing stories of actual, like hate crimes or things,
Mm-hmm.
like that get out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
Back home, I think those can be counted. I don't think that's like or maybe I'm just completely talking about like from a position of privilege that I didn't have to experience those things with me or my friends or my loved ones. But it's not like a reality like you will see, like for instance, in the U.S. that is like, oh, these things happens all the time, and that are completely related to hate crimes.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but still,
Wow. I mean, I do think you're pretty sweet, so I wouldn't be surprised if you were made of sugar.
I know, right?
But when you
It's
were
more
telling
therapy.
that story of the umbrella, which I find like really out of this world, I'm transported to when the Blue Jays won the World Series in Toronto 2 years in a row, which I think was 91, 92 or 92, 93. One of those. I forgot. Oh my God. Thank God I have comments disabled. uh, but my mom got me a, it was a umbrella that was shaped like a Blue Jays hat. And
Okay.
when you opened it, it actually had a brim and it said Toronto Blue Jays. Man, did I ever think I was cool? And just imagine if I woke up that day and I was no longer in Toronto. But I was walking with you with my Blue Jays hat. I just wonder how long I would survive. Probably not very long. Um, my friend in Warsaw, when I went to visit him in 2017, I said, "What should I bring?" And what I thought he would say was like a bathing suit. We might go swimming, like wear, clothes for warm weather. And instead, he said, "Nothing with bright colors, nothing with patterns, nothing sleeveless, or you'll get yelled at when you're walking in the street." Um, And so he
Well,
was.
we're talking Poland right now, so if you can get killed right now, it's
It's
awful.
yeah. It's and so I interviewed him for my first gay away to kind of get a sense, but he chooses not to live in fear. He just kind of he just makes it work for him. But my stars. So, what was it about visiting Montreal? Or how did you like what made you want to be here? And
You know what? It was kind of an accident, a very fortunate accident, to be honest.
this again sounds like a relationship. Just
Again,
like
right?
I don't know, I wasn't
It's
looking for it.
complicated. Uh, um, yeah, actually, it was like that. I pretty much was crushing all over these other guys, and they were not paying attention. So I settled with this one. Basically, that's what I did. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what happened. I was looking for ways to. I needed a break. I needed to be out. I wanted to explore things. I've always been very prompt to connect with other cultures and other people. Like back home when I was living in Barranquilla, for example, I was part of this international association. I had the opportunity to meet people from places that I didn't even know existed at the time. And I know and I hang out at a party and I work with people from like so many different places. And for some reason, I always had this affinity with them. Like I will
Mm,
always connect with them so much to the point that most of the time people will see me around the city hanging out with this group of people from, I don't know, Australia, Lithuania, Philippines, whatever, and not with like my local friends
mm-hmm,
because I felt differently with them. I felt like I connected. I connected more with them. It was such a
mm-hmm,
strange feeling that I feel it was just the fact that I was always attracted to that foreign aspect of, and also because I felt, and maybe it was because I was living in a city that where the city was more close minded, that I felt like I could connect and talk about so many other different things
mm-hmm.
that probably never it will come out in a conversation with other people. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that, and it was just that exploration and that wanted to learn more about different things and how things work in a different place. So that's pretty much how I, in a way, spend most of the time there. It was like connected with people from so many other places, and then so I always wanted to have also that experience of like actually, being abroad for a while and experience different things, even though in a way I have been an expat for two-thirds of my life. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Colombia when I was 10, 11 from Venezuela. And then I lived there in two cities. Now in Canada, I live in two cities. So in a way, I feel like I've been an expat for like since I was 10, because I have been, even though the first two countries share a lot of similarities, right?
Yeah.
And then at some point, I was
Huh.
like, I really need out. I really want to explore more stuff. And Canada just happened kind of by an accident. I was actually in the process of probably going to two different cities, two different countries, and that didn't come through. Actually, my cousin, who was living in Montreal at the time, was like, "Well, did you just come here?" And I say, "Sure, why not?" And that's how I went to Montreal the first time. And then I liked Canada in general, and I was like, "I think I want to go back." And here I am.
I well, glad you're here for obvious reasons. Um, my immediate thought is like, okay, well, where are you going away to next? But maybe you're good here for now. I don't know. I mean, you have a great do you life in Toronto as somebody who lives here is quite reduced from what it was pre-COVID. Like I don't know so much if where we live in Canada matters in the same way that it used to, and I'm hoping that, things return to what I considered arts and excitement here, but uh on paper, you have a great life. You are doing meaningful work in the HIV sector, which I'd love for you to explain a little bit more. You have a partner that you live with, that tick, tick, tick. What more could you
Yeah,
want?
that's actually a good question. I do think it's different. Something that I've always been is I've been very kind of what would be the word? Very control, not control. I mean, I'm not at the age that I could be playing around. I'm gonna explore living in Croatia right now and do it. Like for me, it makes no sense, and it feels so good to have a sense of security in many aspects, like the ones that you were mentioning, and that's something uh, that in a way I was looking for. And that was one decisive aspect of coming here, though.
Hmm.
After my experience in Montreal, that was great and whatever. I was back home, like I say, because my visa expired. And basically, I needed to take the decision of do I want to actually go back? And if I want to go back, I have to go back the right way. So that's what I did. So to the point of like why I ended up here right now living and I'm right now a citizen even, it's
Yes.
because Canada and Australia were actually the only two countries that, at least for Colombians, it can be different from other countries, have open immigration process that you can start from your country. So, despite what other people might do, or because it's easier for them, or because maybe they're younger, or because they're a little more risk takers than I am, is that you see, like, they decided to, okay, I'm gonna go to, I don't know, Bulgaria or whatever, like to some other place, and I'm just gonna wing it, or I'm gonna on this internship, or I'm gonna get a job, and then I'll get a visa and whatever, and they do it. I'm like, I can't do that. I don't have. I'm too old for that. I need to get to a place where I can like literally start working and being a member of the society
Yes.
in all aspects, and that's how it was. So I spent a year and a half almost doing like like paperwork and medical tests and language tests and all this stuff. And I came here as a resident, so I literally left the airport with my social insurance number, and I was ready to get a job.
That's
So
amazing.
I was like, that's what I need to do. I can't just be like exploring, because then you get to a point that you have amazing experiences, but then what am I gonna do now? Where am I gonna live of if I actually make it to, I don't know, 60 or whatever. So
You'll make it to
it's important.
60. I believe in you. I mean, if it's a goal. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I think you
Yeah, well,
can if you want to. I'm so amazed with all of that stuff because I can't imagine, like, I love traveling and I love all of the cultural exchange stuff. I'm a big fan of. And I also think you can't learn about a person unless you know their language and you know about what they're, where they live and you've lived it. And like, there's so much that you can glean from that experience. And I love it. But yeah, it's hard to have a full life in more than one country because all of the things, you came here and you had to start from the bottom, right? Like I'm sure your first job, or was your first job like absolutely your dream chosen field job? Like most
oh
people.
God, not at
Yeah,
all.
so I mean in 5 years, 5 years ish.
These 5 years has been amazing, right? In a way that I have achieved so much in a short period of time, which I appreciate because I mean, I've worked really hard for everything just to come here and to get those things. But at the same time, like you put pressure on yourself, and in my head, it's like, okay, I'm already kind of like behind everybody else, just because, like, again, I'm starting over
Yes.
for the third time in my life, and I was like, I really need to kind of catch up and like get to a point that I feel like comfortable, right? So I was lucky enough that I started getting into that place really soon. Right now, I work in a sector that I never thought I would, which is health, actually, because we do basically research on health for queer men, and it's amazing. I've always loved being part of something that is rewarding, right? Not something that is
Sure.
cool and it's fun or whatever, but it's something that it's rewarding in a way that gives you more than just a salary or like, I don't know, status or whatever it
Yes.
is. I need something that you feel like you're contributing to something. So I really like that about the job that we're doing. We do it for 3 years, and we basically do that. We do uh, community-based research across Canada with queer men. And we use that to develop new initiatives and new programs.
So if you're hearing stuff, that's the anti-mask parade that's coming
Oh
down
boy,
your
don't get me
street.
started with that. So
uh,
don't get me started with that.
Sorry, we had to cut because the anti-mask parade was very loud outside my
Oh,
window.
terrible. I
Yes.
can't roll my eyes loud enough about that.
Oh, and I was like, we could just ignore it, but um, the well of emotion, the feelings that I have about it were just very distracting. So I wasn't able to pay attention. So anyway, and we're back. Thanks for joining. Um, so so you work for the CBRC,
Yes.
the Community Based Research
Center.
Center.
There you go.
And it's a national organization, so you get to work with. You have a lot of partners in Vancouver, yeah,
Yeah,
and
we have a
Montreal.
lot of people everywhere right now. We have been growing a lot, and we have been
Ooh,
really lucky and fortunate that even during this pandemic time, we've been able to I mean to offer people jobs to work with us, and so many queer people who have been joining us recently. So it's been amazing. For us, the pandemic actually is funny because it didn't affect us that much because we're kind of used to working satellite
remotely,
because we have a
yeah.
lot of people. I mean, a big part of the team is in Vancouver. We have some people in Toronto, and before in the prairies, mostly in Edmonton and Halifax. Right now, we have more people in Ontario just alone. Like we have people in different parts of the GTA and also in Ottawa. We have people in Montreal. So we have people everywhere. So for us, like just jumping on Zoom meetings and stuff like that, it just feels natural.
Right.
Of course, right now everything turns into a meeting, so we do more of that. But yeah, it's amazing to have such a great network, and we're doing. It's great to be part of an organization that is doing great work for our communities. So it's really rewarding.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just curious. So you're doing research. Do you think that the pandemic and lockdown is having a larger impact on the queer community?
Oh my god, totally. And I mean, we know that every time that we have all of these elements that are impacting communities, they obviously are going to impact more communities that are already, suffering from any kind of inequalities.
Hmm.
Call it people who are marginalized in any way. So give that to the queer community, queer community who are black or indigenous or people of color, for example. It's just like it just adds different elements that make it even harder for them, right? So of course it had some effects on that. We actually did earlier last year an edition of our Sex Now survey investigating specifically the effects of COVID-19
Hmm.
within the queer population. We're actually close to launch a new one in March with two other partner organizations to study the effects of that because we know that definitely has affected. It has affected in many ways, like we have been talking about today. Just our social health, in a way, has been affected
Hmm.
by the way that we can and can't right now interact with people. Of course, mental health, but has been very has impacted a lot of people
Hmm.
across the board. But of course, when you already are suffering from any kind of uh, inequality or you're marginalized for whatever reason, or you're not getting the things that you need already,
Hmm.
these things just kind of add weight to it. So of course, there's so many things that we're gonna be learning, and the effects of this are gonna be kind of like maybe lingering because we still don't know
We
when
don't
this
know when it's
pandemic
going
is
to be
gonna end,
done.
right? Exactly. So it is rather difficult. I think for community organizations in general, it has been it has been hard. I mean, to try to be there for their community members,
Hmm.
for all those people who are needing more things more than ever right now in many capacities and in many levels. So yeah.
Huh. I just have a couple more questions. I actually, this is probably the longest conversation that we've had, and I feel like we should have more conversations because I'm really enjoying talking with you.
Totally.
And they don't all have to be recorded for posterity. Although, you know, who knows?
Who
Who knows?
knows?
Um, a lot of people I know, in Toronto have been leaving the city because they can now work remotely, and a surprising number of people, I think, have returned to their like family homes and have been like leaving the city and like, oh, I'm living with my parents now, an hour and away, or I've gone back to my home country. Have you felt any inclination like that?
It's been a struggle, Ryan, to be honest, and I've thought about it so much. I've been working at home since the beginning of the pandemic, so like mid March last
Mm-hmm.
year. And we were lucky like that they were like, just go home, work from home, and everything has yeah, everything has been operating like that. At the beginning, for me, it was just like, okay, we didn't know. We thought this was gonna be maybe for a while. We didn't
Just a
know
couple
how this was
weeks.
gonna be working, right? How the whole thing was gonna pan out. And at some point, things became longer, and it's like, oh, and then you see people, like going different places, either like working from, like going on a quote unquote vacation or exploring different places, or staying with friends, family, etc. In my case, I was thinking about it for a while because, like I told you at some point, usually this month is when I go back home. I
Mm.
usually go at the beginning of February every year to visit my family. So I go back home. I go to Bogotá and Barranquilla, visit friends and family. And I was like, maybe I can do that this time. But, since you have the quarantine elements, and since I will be actually able to not only take vacation but work from home if I need to, I could maybe just do like a prolonged period and stay
Mm-hmm.
like for a month at least. That's what I was thinking. But then the whole logistic of it made me, yeah, I decided not to, just because of the logistics, and just because I didn't want to endanger in any way my family. So that was the main reason for me to do it. I was like, okay, but what if I go, still, I have to take a flight for 5 hours, then I have to take another flight for an hour. So it's many things, and I don't want to, arrive there and be sick or whatever. First, I didn't want to get sick, but I'm like, I'm sure probably I will get through it, and it will be like very mild, like for some other people. But like, I have my mom who is over 60, my
Mm-hmm.
grandma who is like 80, and I'm like, I do not want to risk in any way me passing
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19 to them. So it was kind of out of the question. And then I was like, oh well, maybe when vaccination arrives or whatever, we can do that. Also, it was a struggle because I mean, I love them to death, right? But living in Barranquilla for me, it's hard,
Yeah.
especially now because of the weather. Because it's I can't stand it. I don't like the heat. So going and living for over a month with that weather, and especially since you're not gonna be like out and about, the pools, the beach, and whatever,
Right.
I'm like, this is gonna feel like just
Like a hot prison.
a hotter prison, and not like a vacation. So I'm like, I don't even know if all that struggle will be worth it. So right now, so I dropped it. I was
Yeah.
planning to do that maybe for the holidays and stay in January. Right now, of course, I'm thinking about it again,
Yeah.
but situation hasn't changed, and I really don't want to expose anybody. But I will really like to just at least go someplace and just you know work from home or whatever. I think it has opened a lot of possibilities.
Mm.
And to your points, you mentioned something a while back about where is your next away, or like where would you like to go. Like I feel good, and like I feel like I have settled here for so many reasons, but that doesn't mean that I'm just gonna stay put, or that the only thing that I'm gonna do my exploring is just gonna be based on vacations. I would love to have the chance to be like 1 month in, I don't know, in Paris. You were talking about Paris, like I loved it there. Like I would like to go there for at least a month. My last vacation, big vacation, was Japan in 2019, and I absolutely love Tokyo. I would love to go there for a month or 2 months and just
Wow.
live there, just
Yeah.
have the experience of like the everyday life.
Yeah.
And I think now that so many places, and because of the pandemic, many places have proved that they can completely operate like virtually. It has definitely, hope, and it puts some stuff in my head like, oh,
Hmm.
maybe once I feel comfortable, I can go to some place and be like, instead of taking a 2 week vacation, I can say two more just working from the place. But you can still get the experience of like walking into a foreign
Yeah.
coffee shop and walking down the street. So yeah, so I do think that my aways will be a little more like that, more like little aways.
Yes.
But I feel like in Canada I found a good place to stay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, and let's chat, and let's avatar sometime or whatever.
Totally.
Maybe I could coax you out of the box of your city limits.
It's okay. We're we're in the same city.
Oh, okay,
Our
okay,
Toronto,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. So
Okay.
it's good.
We'll make it work. Thank you so much, and have a fabulous rest of your day.
You too, hon. Thank you so much, and enjoy the snow.
Goodbye. Hi there, and thank you so much for listening to the end of this podcast, The Gay Away with Jose. Oh my God, that rhymes even more. Next week's episode is going to be an interview with someone I've never met before. We connected on Instagram. Her name is Michelle Mai, and she is a gem cutter by night and a scientist by day. And I love things that sparkle. I love gemstones. I love things that are expensive. And I love people that follow their artistic passion and their scientific passion. And Michelle is also this amazing activist. So I wanted to talk to her about what it's like in a male dominated, mostly white world, I think, of gem trading and cutting. It's quite an international business, as you can imagine, and also how she got into it and what she's up to. And she's all the way from California. So looking forward to that interview very much. The sun's getting bright. Time to sign off. Take care. Bye.